All right, Israel, thank you very much for joining us today. We like to move quick, so we're going to jump right into things. And the best way for us to start is if you can share a little bit about your background, the times that you spent building companies to all the way through everything from the beginning, I guess, a little bit of a background, and then kind of where you're at today. And then one thing about you that nobody would know.
Great. Well, look, as the audience probably heard, I'm Mexican. I was born and raised in Mexico in my young years. And eventually all my professional life, I had the pleasure of living in the UK for 25 years. First 8 years in London. So pretty much as most immigrants, like we all are, we end up working in an industry that we just fall into it. It was the leisure industry, and I ended up working all my way from cleaning floors to being the director of expansion for the whole of Europe for the number one company in the world on leisure entertainment. So because of that, I thought, okay, yeah, if I'm very good at doing things for a company and for somebody else, maybe I should try it myself. So I jumped into being an entrepreneur. Little did I know that it was going to be one of the most hurtful and exciting times, and I have never stopped since. So I put 3 companies together in the UK as an overall. 2 of them worked fantastically well, made my ego grow even bigger on decision-making and thinking that everything that I touched turned into gold. And eventually on the third one, every single decision that I took on my own went wrong. I didn't have a mentor, didn't have an advisor. I thought I could do everything, right? As most entrepreneurs, we think failure due to our ego. And that company took me into a bankruptcy. So that was lost absolutely everything. It was a great experience, something that I try not to repeat. And I think if there is a place where you can go unbanked and bankrupt, is in the UK. The English know how to do it really well. Anyway, and due to that, being an entrepreneur, I had some, never stop having ideas, which is what entrepreneurs have tons of, right? Especially on a Friday night after a few drinks in bed. And so I had 2 friends of mine who acted as angel investors, and they invest together with me on a new project. It did pretty well, and that's how I got involved in angel investment. Somebody saved my neck, invested in me, they met me, and they believed in me. And eventually we did well, so I kept working and doing other things. But when I came back to Mexico, I thought angel investment is something very, very important to try and develop more in not just Mexico, but Latin America, right? So close to the US and Canada, 4-hour flight, but so far away in terms of entrepreneurial ecosystems. And yet, we had a great opportunity to do cross-border, to doing a lot of things together, but we just don't seem to be able to do it. And it's just the differences between ecosystems, is miles between one and another. So that's a little bit of me. What people don't know about me, and I'd like to share, there are 2 things, not just one. One is obviously they're not going to know that when I was 8 years old, in order to buy myself a toy that my mom told me that I couldn't buy in the supermarket, she offered to finance my entrepreneur idea of selling jelly in the streets of Mexico to buy myself a toy. So my first entrepreneurial experience was at 8 years old, standing in the street corner, selling jelly for 50 cents of a peso, and a smiling, wide smile, very well hairbrushed and everything, because I knew that most of the ladies that will work in the offices nearby will buy you by a smile. Because as a small kid, I was a good-looking kid. Later on, everything went wrong, but I sold enough to be able to buy my toy and some more. So that's one thing. And the other one is I'm surrounded by, I'm a minority at home. I got 5 daughters and my wife. And so in terms of gender equality is something very high on my personal agenda, as it were, and everything I look at on entrepreneurs, angel investors, everything.
That's amazing. And I love the story of when you were a kid. Those stories always resonate because when we were doing talks with a group of high school students coming up, and one of the whole line was that you've been an entrepreneur and you didn't know it. And I think a lot of people forget that they've actually done a lot of things to make money when they were kids. And I think that's a really good start to kind of think about, wait, maybe I have been able to do this, and I did this when I was a kid, and you totally forget these little things you did to win. And that's a great story.
Yeah, it's right. And what I do remember that, and my wife tells me that, as a kid, that she used to go around doing the newspaper rounds, right? Or going to wash the neighbors' cars. And that's entrepreneurial. You're given a solution, and you're getting some money in exchange for it, and you get a customer that's really happy and be able to get you to wash their car the following weekend, or to deliver the paper, right? When in those times when it was paper rounds.
For sure. Well, I did the same. I had paper routes as a kid, did lots of stuff like that. I would disappear for 5-6 hours to deliver a paper route that took me 20 minutes, but I just enjoyed the walking around and doing things. But it does remind me of when I think it was maybe our 50th show. My parents decided they wanted to come to see what I did and what we were running. So they showed up, and then I had to kind of tell the crowd that my parents were there. But when they were coming in, my mother said, "Did you know that when you were a kid, you took your dresser and you put your dresser in the closet?" And I said, "No." She's like, "Yeah. And then I would come and move it out and put it back in your room, and then you'd stick it back in your closet." She's like, "I had no idea. I didn't know why you did it, but you couldn't stand things in the room. You just wanted lots of space." And she said, "What you actually invented was the closet organizer, and you put your dresser in there to organize everything." And I was like, "Wow, why didn't we turn that into an idea? Look how big that is now." And she's like, "I know, Yeah. And little stories like that. So they make you reflect on the things you did as a kid, right? Like I've got a million other ones that are funny, but it is fascinating how much of an entrepreneur is created as a kid. And when we get into this strict regime of I need to be this, grow up to be this, that you forget about all of these intuitive, innovative things you did as a kid that actually could have turned you into an entrepreneur sooner, faster, quicker. And some of that comes down to, and you talked about this in a lot of the materials and a lot of the keynote stuff that you talk about, which is on how mentoring works and being able to mentor these young startups. But I wonder if you find that this is actually something that could go even further back and start mentoring teachers and start mentoring parents so that they can start to see these skills that are buried in these kids so that they will actually utilize those as energy to drive forward instead of locking them away and finding them 20 years later when they're trying to build a company and think they have no idea what it takes to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, man, and I think the skills of being a mentor or learning how to be a mentor are paramount. I think you're quite right. Nothing prepares you for parenthood. Nothing prepares you to be able to teach children, right? You learn. I mean, everything that is in the books that tells you how to teach children. And I see that at home because my wife is a teacher, right? So she's, I can see a lot of the stuff, but she was an entrepreneur with me at one point in the UK. We had our own businesses. And so she has gone through it. She knows what it's like to lose everything. She knows what it's like to identify the key points on the kids that talk about entrepreneurship. So that's, she teaches businesses, so business lessons. So that class is amazing because I actually think they're going to benefit from somebody having been an entrepreneur, investing her money and then making money and then investing money, losing money, but trying absolutely everything. And those kids do write to my wife saying, you know what, you were the best lesson. Some of the advice that you've given us, we've taken into university and they done pretty well. So I do think the skills of mentorship, it doesn't mean that you have to mentor another businessman or businesswoman. I think mentoring and nurturing those skills from kids is amazing because you're quite right. You and I were out there doing our bits, enjoying the freedom, but also we were able to talk to people and sell them a product without any issues. We had no inhibitions at all. Eventually, later on, you do. And you start spending all this time knowing or thinking, how is it that it's not going to work? And then actually what you are working with is that your ego makes you think that you're going to fail and you want to be perfect. And when you're a kid, you don't mind not being perfect. You just want to go and do it, right? But yeah, I mean, I think I would have been a continuous entrepreneur in my early age. Have I not been thought that you have to go and find a job? Nothing wrong with that. But then you have to be an employee. But then you have to eventually save money if you ever can, and then your life is planned out for you, right? So there is no mentoring anybody that can come to you and say, you know what, you can do whatever you want as long as you don't hurt anybody. You know, you can dream it.
I love that. And how does a startup or even someone in high school, university, how do you think that they should engage with mentorship? It's kind of something new, right? It's like a life coach. What makes you decide I should go and do something like this? Is it, I feel I need to be more mature, so I'm going to find someone that can educate me and give me business acumen? Like, what is the driving factor where people just think this is, you know, and I don't think people want to think this, but wow, this is really tough. I need somebody that has some, you know, back experience in this to help me out. Is there some signs that you can kind of share that would say, you know what, you don't need anything. Just as soon as you're going to start something, find 3 people that know what they're talking about and start working with them right away. That's going to help you going forward. Is there some sort of mechanism or program that you kind of get people in that train of thought that says, I really do need to look for help and not be afraid of it?
I think, you know, some of the bits that I normally do on courses that I give, especially with qualified mentorship. And I want to tell you, Jeffrey, I went into this in the past 2 years after, as an angel investor, seeing the terrible advice that some of the entrepreneurs that we had invested or were looking into investing in were being given by so-called mentors, right? And mentorship for free, which is so dangerous. And I mean free with people who actually haven't been trained to become mentors, right? And you touch on a factor. You said a word there that is very, very important to identify. It's like you need a life coach, or you need a business advisor, or you need a mentor. I like to think that a mentor can play all those roles at any point in time in the life of somebody. So what was the most important thing for an entrepreneur is to understand that you don't know it all. So, and the entrepreneur is the first thing that we think that we do, that we know it all, that we know a business model, we know what we're going to do. Because everybody out there, all these webinars that we got to, all these entrepreneurs, leadership, they're always telling you, believe in yourself, you can do it, don't listen to people, go 100 miles an hour, go for it. Actually telling you don't listen to any advice that you get, right? And then you get the other leaders saying, actually, you know, you've got to listen to a little bit piece of advice. And then, well, you've got to listen to the quality of the advice, right? I think that's what yes, listen to the advice, but listen to the quality. And the best, and also be very careful when as an entrepreneur or as an angel investor, if your entrepreneur is looking for a mentor, who actually has time to mentor the entrepreneur, it might be that he's not that good or she's not that good. That's why they have time to do it, right? Because anybody who's worth 2 cents out there, they're actually really busy and they already have 2 or 3 people that they mentor. I don't believe that mentors can actually mentor more than 2 people at a time, because you need to focus into what advice you need to give. And you as an entrepreneur or angel investor even, we all need to have our mentors. You should analyze what you want to mentor for. You don't need a friend, right? Because that's the wrong thing. You need somebody who's going to tell you the way it is, and also to question what you think.
Well, there's you made all of that is very valuable, but you made one point that really stood out, and you said you don't need a friend. And I want to kind of explore that, because I think it's in our innate ability that when we start to engage with somebody, we go to thinking that we need to be friends with this person and not looking at what I'm actually working to get out of this. And I think that that's where the most valuable piece of what you're saying is that don't treat this that you're friends. Treat this as this person is purely business and they're trying to guide you and help you, and they need to push back against the things that you're doing. You need to be able to share raw data. that when you do sit in that room and talk about it with board members or anybody else, they're going to jump all over you, and they should jump all over you. Everything shouldn't be rosy, and this is amazing. Great job, pat on the back. And you're like, wait a second, I just lost $2 million. How is this rosy? You do need the pushback, and you need your coaches and your mentors to be able to take that same approach. And it's that hard love approach, and it's business versus I'm building this and I've got some friends that are really helping me. I think that that's the total opposite. And you should be flipping in and out of coaches every year to every 2 years, because you need that advancement, you need that push, and you don't want the comfort level. Is that a fair statement?
I think you have touched on something very, very important, the comfort level. And the comfort level is when we hear what we want to hear, right? That's your comfort level. So you're always being told you are good, everything is going to be rosy, don't worry, keep doing it, it's part of the entrepreneurial peak and troughs. And that's not right. And you touch also in something that I'd like to expand a little bit more. You need to have a structure of meetings with your mentors. And it's something that I talk on my on the certification courses that I do. It's like, right, you need to put a time to it. You need to put a place, and you need to put KPIs that you're going to talk about. And your mentor has to come to you and say, hi, how are you doing? And forget about talking the first 10, 15 minutes. How is your family? How is your health? How is everything else? Because you know each other already. So go straight on to the points. Ask your mentor to drill you, right? To make you think, to say, this is the KPIs that I have to measure because I need to measure growth. And growth can be measured, the impact that you create with your project. Growth can be measured on sales. Growth can be measured in different things. You set the KPIs with your mentor, and that's why you talk for an hour. Nothing else, right? Innovation a little bit, but just feel like you're being drilled and make yourself think, where are you going with what you are doing and what you need to change, right? If you want to have a coffee with a mentor, you can go to Starbucks and sit there and talk to the guy on the table next to you, and that'll be a friendly coffee. I say to the mentors, never meet in a Starbucks. They're just distracted elements everywhere. We need to professionalize mentoring, and not just in the way that's delivered, but also in the structure that it is delivered. Because then entrepreneurs will take it more serious, and you will know that some of the advice that you get, or the way that it makes you think, it will go, a long way to be able to take better decisions with your team, with your investors, with the board that you have to respond to, because you got those KPIs with your mentor all the time.
And I love that, because what I think that does as well is taking putting yourself into a business atmosphere. It creates focus, but it also creates accountability. And I think to your point, and to another investor that I was speaking with a couple of weeks ago out of Montreal, he was on how boards should work and how programmatic they need to be, and how they need to be a lot more stern. And they're not there to be your friend. They're there to punch holes, but give you the guidance to get you to that next stage. And I think coaching is pretty much the exact same structure. It's accountability for you, because really when you're at the top, you don't really have anybody else accountable. So you need to force yourself into that accountability position, which is someone's got to be your boss, or I want someone to be my boss. So I need to report numbers. I need to report in. And those are the types of things that can really help you strive to hit new goals, but also build goals and plans that people can all get behind.
And this is very important, because one of the things you just mentioned, it gives you a structure, right? And one of your guests was talking about how do you behave in front of your board, corporate governance, how you run a meeting, and actually having a set of meeting rules with your mentor helps you to prepare yourself for when you actually deliver those reports to your board, to your investors, right? And so even without doing it with a focus of actually, I'm going to learn how to present or how to behave or how to run a board meeting as an entrepreneur or CEO or managing director of the company that you will be, or the leading entrepreneur, working with your mentor on this professional basis, it trains you to be able to do it, right? So it is amazing. But actually, and I say to the mentors or the people who want to become mentors, is you need to keep this structure, because you need to prepare the entrepreneur to be able to report to have corporate governance. It's not just reading a list that this is what you need to do, this is how you call the meeting, this is where, the role of everybody sitting around the table, this is how you take the minutes. No, it actually, you need to put into practice during your mentoring sessions so that the entrepreneur feels comfortable, gains confidence on how to do it, and talking about the numbers and how the numbers can go wrong and can go right and what to do and where are you going with this, right? So, but sometimes I say to people, it's just second nature without us knowing that actually is within ourselves to be able to do this with entrepreneurs and the mentors. That the mentors can be key for a person to be a successful entrepreneur.
I love it. It's creating patterns, and you need to create strong patterns so that your mentor and your business can all kind of move forward in the right direction. Now, kind of taking a step back from that, you've obviously learned, built, and shared a lot around how coaching and mentoring can be really valuable to a startup, to a business, and as it grows at any stage. Now, if we go back to kind of your earlier career where you were working, building out your own companies, I think there was 10, 11 years where you had 3 companies, really focused on building these up, selling them, going through the trials and tribulations of a company. How much of that experience is really turned to what you do today? Obviously, you moved into investing, you started working with all these companies, mentoring, coaching. How much of that learning did it just kind of hit you and say, man, I can't be the only one facing this problem. I really need to dive into this more and figure out how I can turn this around and help others not hit the pitfalls or hit the troubled areas that I went through, as you mentioned, when you went through that last trouble in your last company.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about the tribulations that I passed with, with a company where I went through losing absolutely everything, and I always talk about it on the conferences. But one of the things that happens to us, and in my experience, is that you try to forget the failures pretty damn quick, and you try to forget what you learned from your failures pretty damn quick. Because as human nature is, you just want to be positive. You just want to talk about good things and everything is going to be great. And we're all going to come out of this COVID-19 being better people, better humans. Never mind that we will probably want and we still have to learn a lot more. So that's one of the most difficult things that I think happens to me. When I see the entrepreneurs are making mistakes, and I remember that I used to make those mistakes, right? The most common mistake that I see is the wall of silence, which I did as well. I stopped passing information on because you just feel ashamed, because you just don't want to give bad news, because you just want to keep thinking about something positive. So the wall of silence on behalf of the entrepreneurs is something that I see that happens a lot. And the wall of silence even happens when they're pitching the project to you, right? It's like, they talk to you about absolutely how everything is rosy and it's going to be fantastic if you invest in their project. But you think, okay, so what is it that you're not telling me? Because obviously you have seen other investors. I'm not the first one. There is a reason why you're still pitching and you're still going. And it's not just to gain confidence on how to pitch in front of investors. So I think the wall of silence for me is the biggest resonates the bigger with my experiences, and then what happens. The rest is just details. Is why didn't you manage your cash flow? What happened? What decisions are you taking? How are you taking your decisions? Because you think if you're taking it on your own, then how am I going to help you to take the decisions? Because all the decisions are taken on my own. I can tell you 99% of them, I hit the wall and it hurt me hard. So because I didn't evaluate anybody else's point of view on me taking the decisions. There are certain decisions that you take, like sometimes you have to get rid of people and they're very difficult, but you don't even take it on your own, right? You are the one that's going to execute the decision, but you have to ask for opinion. And that those things, I think you can learn them. But the wall of silence for me is the one that resonates the more with my experience when I see entrepreneurs. And so it happens. 3 companies, I have 3 fatalities in the startups that we have invested in. And the 3 of them went through the wall of silence. Couple of months, 3 months, nothing, no news. And then all of a sudden, the terrible news, the entrepreneur throws the towel in. There you go, can't do it no more. Personal things, family things, everything else. It's all crumbling down. and you think, yeah, I remember that,
You remember hitting that wall and not being able to figure out how to get around it when, maybe 2 months earlier than that decision coming up, that if you would have been talking a little bit more about it or speaking to other people, it might have opened the door a little bit more and built some clarity. And one of the things that, I think is really valuable in learning more about the mentoring and coaching and starting this early is that, I've heard a lot of things about when you should put boards together and when you should put advisors together. And I really think that when you put any sort of angel money into a company, you should build a board. I used to think that they were too early. And what I've learned over the years is that it's never too early, because that creates accountability yet again. And that is a mini coaching session that you're going to get as long as those board people are taking the attention to dive in and learn more. But it also creates that startup to have someone to chat with and learn and speak and open up, which hopefully will open up to a larger board in time, but it'll create process, it'll create different understanding and accountability. So in those same lines, when you were building your companies, is that something that you kind of look forward to now and kind of share as well, that the opportunity has to start earlier and you really got to drive this out in order to make sure these companies do survive, especially if they're a great product or idea?
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more on that side of things. I mean, when I first started in Latin America and in Mexico, investing on these startups, one of the things that we will say to the entrepreneurs was, we're going to the pre-due diligence. Is that, have you got a board? No. Okay, we're going to need to set the board. We're going to need to structure, and then the voting is going to be done this way. And they all look at us like, you're absolutely crazy. Now, imagine in a country where the most common problem in companies that are listed in the stock, in the public stock in Mexico, the most common problem is precisely corporate governance. They don't comply. In a listed market where the main priority is you must comply to these rules, right? So what hope have you got in a culture where most of the things have to be hidden, because that's how business gets done? So with entrepreneurs in Latin America, you have a double challenge. You have the challenge that you have in the US, in Canada, and Europe, where, right, let's start the corporate governance, let's put a board together, and the entrepreneurs a little bit of, hang on, you're putting handcuffs on me, right? No. Let's just give it some structure. This is what you said, right? It's going to be an advisory board, but you need to get results and trying to sell it to them. Well, in Mexico and Latin America, you have to do it twice over, right? First is you have to work on the culture side of things, because they don't like this having a boss, right? They believe entrepreneur is about, I take my decisions, I'll buy myself a Mercedes, I go on holiday as soon as the investment comes in, and then we'll see. So you try to put all of this in, and they think it's too difficult, you make it too difficult. And that takes me to my next point, is like, when you're trying to put seriousness and corporate governance and reporting and mentorship and KPIs, here it comes the other side of, make sure that the money comes in quicker, right? So make sure we put a safe into place, and entrepreneurs get told this. So your entrepreneurs in Latin America are exposed to the quick access to money, like in the US and sometimes in Canada and Europe, and the lack of a structure in your own environment. So in angel investment, even in developed markets, especially in Mexico and Latin America, you're fighting with those two things. You're fighting with entrepreneurs telling you should free up your money quicker, and don't put so many rules. Yeah, we'll talk about it later on.
I think that's a real big misconception that is unfortunate, and it carries forever. It's almost like if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you just happen to always meet the same person that gives you the same wrong advice and tells you the same wrong stories. It's kind of like when you go into a country, you always run into the person that says, don't go past 8 o'clock. The whole country's bad, and you're going to get mugged. And you're like, really? I don't believe this. And then you don't go out and you have the worst time. And meanwhile, the country is super safe, but they always spread the bad of all the bad instead of spreading all the amazing things that can occur by enlightening people, by giving them the saying, look, you're not losing control, you're gaining process. You're building mentorship. You're not building a boss. Like it's just weird because I remember so many times startups would always say, oh, don't go to VCs, don't take their money, they'll take over your company and they'll out you. And that's 1 in a million. And that's because that CEO did a terrible job and had to be outed because he did buy a Mercedes and did buy a penthouse and the company was burning money and not growing money. So there probably were reasons that these things occurred, but no one talks about them. So it creates this stigma that when all of these startups go out and look for funding, they think that they're all bad people, that investors are going to ruin them. And I think that you got to kind of somehow change that story because angels are there to support and VCs as well. They all have day jobs and their day job isn't figuring out how to run your company. It's how to support your company. And I think there's somehow we got to write this on billboards, but break down this fear because I think it really does impede the opportunities that companies can go for by getting the right people in early.
And precisely that point, I was talking yesterday on another webinar in Latin America, based out of Costa Rica, and there were various people from the ecosystem, and they just wanted me to give what the context is in the investment scenery in Latin America. But I always pretty much end up talking about the same stuff in one way or another, even though I change my presentations, because I see this as the main point is that here are the investors, so, talking a certain language and making sense or not making sense or whatever. And here are the entrepreneurs also talking some other language within the same entrepreneurial ecosystem that we all belong to. And what happens is we just talk different languages, right? We don't sit down and we don't understand how each other has to think. So all my conversations and all my talks always like, this is how the angels think. This is how an investor thinks. This is how a VC thinks. And this is and after 5 years of repeating myself and making people think, this is how we do it. We got to think as a portfolio. We don't think as the one opportunity shot. But every time we make an investment, that's the one opportunity shot for us. But we are building the portfolio, right? And we've got to balance it. And what we need to do is we need to have these returns. If we don't get them, then obviously we stop being angel investors and we're gonna have to go and earn ourselves some money somewhere else. But and that's the reality of it. But what does happen is that normally, yes, then we isolate again. It's like we get together for a conference and you see it in a conference, entrepreneurs are at one side of the coffee table having coffee and biscuits, and on the other side, investors having coffee and biscuits, always talking to the same people, right? So and eventually, this is what needs to happen: is we need to marry each other, but we just don't know how each other thinks, or why we're playing the game that we're playing, or why we take the role that we take, and that's the most important thing, right? So it is something that I think it happens that entrepreneurs have an image of investors that doesn't necessarily make justice, and entrepreneurs therefore return saying having to justify no's. That's the worst thing that you are being asked when you say no to an entrepreneur. They say, why not? It's just a no. It's like it's easy if you just go to pitch on to the next one because this is no for me, right? For sure. And if we take kind of all of these great things that we've shared and what you've been kind of talking about on how startups can really survive and really get off the ground here and certainly make a push in the market and get some great people to support them. Is there maybe, before we transition kind of into the rapid fire questions, but is there maybe from your learnings of going through the fail of your company, obviously you have successes as well, so this is a good matchup. Is there kind of like 3 or 4 things that you would kind of suggest to any company that's starting out? Take a look, write these on the wall because we know we need to see them every day before it's kind of imprinted in our brain. But are there a couple of points that would stand out that you say, to build a well-balanced business in your first 2 years, you need to focus on these 3 things? And I know you mentioned one of them, I'm giving you a cheat sheet, but would be, don't seal yourself off from communication. So communication is number 1. Is there other things that you see that really fit that can help startups really start to mentally think about what it takes to be an entrepreneur? I would say try not to hire your friends because they're the most difficult ones to get rid of when things go wrong. especially on this side. That's something that I learned, and I kept making the same mistake, and I even did it on my last company, because you start thinking with your feelings and you don't start thinking with a clear head, right? And always, and I think one of the main purposes, we always say, we do things because we want to have a positive impact in the world. Yes, but I think we forget that we live in a society where money makes things move. And you need investment one way or another, whether you're a traditional business or you are a social impact business, you need to attract it. So understand how to manage money. And that's bringing money, making money, and spreading and sharing the money. Because if you don't know that, everything else that you have as your feelings are, I want to alleviate poverty in the world. I want people to do a lot of positive things. You can't do it just sitting on the side of the road without anywhere to move with or people to listen to you, right? And that's what we are. And so we have to be clear, because sometimes say all the other things are just nice dreams, but to convert those dreams into reality, you have to put petrol into the car to drive it.
I love it. Those are 3 great. Don't hire friends, open communication, and understand money. Bingo. I love it. Especially the understand money part. Man, that's huge. Because you're right. There's always going to be some sort of shortcomings. And a lot of the time I'd estimate 98% of founders are builders and they forget about sales. So there's like little things we learn as we go in this space. And then I would say that of the 100% again of entrepreneurs, let's say 80% of them haven't really figured out finance. And then maybe 80% of them haven't figured out tech, because we all went through this bucket where we all streamlined to be good at one thing. And the great thing is that we're all good at one thing, but we have to open up our minds because these other things become quite challenging. And that open communication and I love the no friends part, because it's difficult. You want to be part of it and have everybody join in. But I think that's very, very valuable 3 items to think about when you're jumping into entrepreneurship. We're going to kind of move into it, and I want to dive into this one question that, and I'm sure you've got plenty stories on this, but what story can you share with the audience that really will depict what it takes to be an entrepreneur? What is like you mentioned what you've gone through, and you're very passionate about having some wins, having some fails, but is there a story out there that really resonates with yourself around a founder where she had to go through adversity just to crush it, or whatever that might be, but the heartstringing entrepreneur that really makes you feel, wow, this is what it takes to be an entrepreneur? Is there any story that resides with you that you can share with the audience?
Yes, and I have to talk about what do angel investors or angel networks talk about? Is like it's all responsibility to talk about our portfolio, right? Our investments and the people that we believe in, and that's why we make sure that they got an investment. And this is probably one that you might have met him in Chihuahua when we had our conference there. He's a French entrepreneur from a startup called Desidata, and not in 2019, just after the Chihuahua event, one of the co-founders just decided to, they received the largest check first time round in Latin America for a Latin American startup. First angel investment, $1.3 million. For an angel investment, that's pretty large. And it was also the first time that 5 different countries co-invested, angel investors. So it was
amazing.
It was quite exciting and expensive on the legal side.
Yep.
But what happened is the entrepreneur is his friend, right? Decided, but with his girlfriend, I mean, not his girlfriend, their friend's girlfriend, they decided to get up and say, right, look, we're going to go and live in Canada, right? And there is the business, and the business starting to go down a little bit because they had a couple of clients that just didn't come through and they hadn't paid them. So things started to get difficult, and somebody jumps the ship, right? And one of the founders jumped the ship. Soon after, the other founder, that was pretty much a silent founder, also decides to take the opportunity to leave, and they leave this guy on his own. So this guy has to do a call that the board and say, look, I only got cash flow for the next 3 months. We've got no customers, no new customers. The ones that are going to pay us is just going to give us enough money to survive 3 months after that. If they don't pay us, then in 3 months, we are completely gone. The board of directors, half of the board of investors, just thought, well, tough shit. It's like, sort it out. The other half would have said, okay, so what do you need? What do you want from us? The best thing to do is I want to get rid of these guys. I want them to let go so I can take control. And my plan is to go and visit the 2 key clients and sell them more of what they already buy. Right? So they had 3 months to survive. First of all, he decided he had to let go of 50% of the employees. This is a startup that already had 32 people working for them. So they had to do it with 16 now. 2 of the co-founders went. One of them was the tech side. So they have a platform and he had to learn how to use it. So he had to do he had to do the sales cap. He had to go and do the financing cap. He had to be the CEO. And he had to be the inspirational leader with his team, right? Who all of a sudden had to move offices and had to see half of their workmates go. And then he went quiet. Like, let me work on this for 2 months and we meet again and then I'll let you know how we're doing. He did call me a couple of times to just, alleviate a little bit and about his frustration. And of course, to have me on his side, so when it came to the voting on the board to get people out, we could do it. He managed to turn it around. He closed the largest deal with Televisa, which is the largest TV network operator in Latin America, and he managed to turn it around. We had a few drinks together. We met each other, and that's when a lot of the things flow. He was telling me how his nights was without sleeping. So during the day he had to be positive. He had to lead his team. At nighttime he would literally cry in his bed, thinking, "What am I going to do?" And he kept doing it. And he's the company obviously is not completely out of the daily challenges that having a startup, even though he operates in 5 countries, and they're doing quite well. They don't need to raise money right now. But I think it was probably 2 weeks away from completely closing down, pulling the curtain down and saying goodbye, to actually turn around and say it. And he did say, the most important thing for me was having the support of angel investors, because the VC that was with us, they just said, we'll just wait to see what you do. But that was so that resonates to me quite a lot, because you have somebody who also his relationship suffered due to the fact that his co-founder put his relationship first, right? And he didn't, because he believed in this dream. So, but he's done pretty well. French guy, and he's fantastic. So he's always one of the people that I invite to talk in front of other entrepreneurs, just to let them know that even sometimes your girlfriends will have to suffer.
No, that's a great story, and resilience and passion and being able to take back and control what you've built and drive that forward is phenomenal. So amazing story, and I'm glad they were able to turn it around, because it sounds like they did some great things to start it and kick it off, and then everybody decided, wait, we got our payday, time to go. So it's I'm glad that he was able to change that around. But yeah, that's what it takes to be an entrepreneur. It certainly does. That's awesome. Okay, we're gonna kind of transition now into our rapid fire questions.
Great.
All right, here we go. And some of these you did mention before, but we're going to jump into them regardless, just to kind of round it all back up again. So what's your favorite part of in early stage investing?
The energy of the entrepreneurs. That's what I like. That's my favorite part.
I like it. How many companies do you invest in per year?
Last year, big fat zero. It was all follow-ons and trying to survive and save them. Normally, it's about 2 to 3 companies for the past 3 years.
Perfect. I like it. It's good. Average is good. Any verticals you like to focus on?
No, I welcome everything. I want to learn about everything. I know sometimes angel investors get told, dedicate yourself to the industries that you know. I dedicate myself to learn, so I just go into anything that sounds exciting.
I love it. Awesome. Any due diligence requirements that you like to make sure you have in order to make an investment?
Yes, on the number side, we talked about how we need to make sure that entrepreneurs know how to manage money. I do want to know how their bank accounts have been managed. I don't go into details what gets spent on. I just, I have a glance, and I think most of us could have a glance of how a bank account behaves, and from that you take the vision that you want. So I like to look at a bank account and think this is how it moves.
Perfect. I love it. We do 3 months of print screens of their bank statements so that we know what's going on. Yep. Agreed. Outside of the DD requirements, do you look for any other factors that really drive the company? Is it you're really interested in product first, or CEO or team, anything like that really stands out again?
I think it has to be. The CEO, we all have a look at the CEOs and decide whether they're the right person to be with, but the team they surround themselves is just as important, because people forget that during the first 2 years of you having invested, it's more likely that 1 or 2 of the co-founders are going to disappear.
That's a very valid point. Agreed. Do you like to lead rounds?
No, we like to convince people around the rounds. Okay.
Do you have preferred terms? Pref, shares, common, safes, or you're open-ended?
We're open-ended, but mostly in Mexico, due to legal restrictions, is common shares.
Oh, brilliant. I'm moving to Mexico. I do like Mexico. All right. So and you mentioned this already, so you do follow-on investments, and is there a percentage always? How do you look at that?
Mostly is obviously we look at if we can bring in new investors on the same round of the follow-on. We try to maintain of the new round to just leverage 20-30% of it.
Okay. And do you take board seats?
No, we get we would rather allocate a mentor or be invited, but we don't put it as a rule. Okay,
perfect. All right, so that's going to end the rapid fire questions. Well done. We're going to jump into the personal questions here. So, first question: what is your favorite sports team?
Sports team. Right. So that depends on the sports side of things, right? So in soccer, as you call it, has to be America, and I do follow rugby, so it has to be Richmond rugby team in the UK.
Okay, very cool. And what was the football team or the soccer team?
America. Yeah.
Okay.
It's called America. Yeah, it's in the Mexican League, and
the Mexican League. Yeah.
I think we just played against the Toronto something, and we won. Yeah.
The TFC.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've in the past I have gone to many of those matches, so I'm a big soccer fan, football fan. While I travel around the world, I make sure that I go to games in every city or country that I'm in, regardless of where I am. So I have seen soccer matches in little islands all the way to big games. I'm an Arsenal fan, but I love watching the game, and it's crazy. The craziest match I probably watched was in Saint-Germain, Paris Saint-Germain. PSG game. The fans were crazy, absolutely nuts. Just the way they did the game, like I could spend 10 minutes just describing it to you. It blows me out of the water how this old stadium where PSG plays, And it was just incredible. The way the crowd was into this, like jumping, the whole stadium shaking. It was incredible. And then the other one was in, actually, my last travels before COVID was in Israel. I was in, I think it was in Haka, and I was watching the local league play. And I have to share this only because this was pretty nuts, but it's a kind of a dome, with the open top, but it goes up pretty high. So when the match started, a few minutes before the match started, they lit off so many smoke bombs in the place that when they dropped the ball and the game started, you couldn't see anything. So the crowd was cheering, but the players couldn't move because they couldn't see the field because they couldn't see the ball or anything. So for 7 minutes, everybody stood there waiting for all of this smoke to go out. And then they could see some guy running in the corner moving the ball. And that's how the game started. So I had never seen that before, but the excitement was so high that everybody was lighting up fireworks, everything. And yeah, that was how the game started. So it was like literally 7 minutes before the ball even moved. So
wow.
Yeah, I don't know why I had to get all excited to share this, but someone needed to hear this story, I guess. All right. Next question is, what is your favorite movie and what character would you play in the movie?
Yeah. So now you just caught me off guard because there are two favorite movies, but I have to choose one.
You can choose both. Yeah. We're open to that.
But there was one film the name of the film was The Bull. Is The Bull with Sylvester Stallone? He's a boxer.
Yep.
No, sorry, not Sylvester Stallone. Robert De Niro.
The Bull. Yeah, Robert De Niro. Yes.
Yeah. So I really liked that film. I felt quite identified with the with it's probably the entrepreneurial life, right? What he did. Unfortunately, obviously, he dies, but he actually, he turns himself into a great fighter, and so I have to identify with that one and Robert De Niro. And the other one, the name escapes right now. It's silly of me, but is from the director of Reservoir Dogs, the first one of the series, which was where John Travolta. Was that pretty much does it for me.
And which character, John Travolta?
Yeah, especially when he's dancing.
Oh, okay, yeah. The oh my God, I can picture it right now. It's with Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes.
And John Travolta. Yes. I was a huge fan. I watched that movie 1,000 times when I was a kid. The Bull I haven't seen since I was younger, so I have to rewatch that one. But I do like that one. It'll come to me, the name, in a second. But the last question to this is, what is your superpower?
My superpower, I don't know. I would say that I'm always willing to listen. My superpower is always willing to listen. My wife would probably disagree with that. My children as well, because I just come to stop conversations all the time. But and my wife also says, "What are you doing? What conversation are you having now? What Zoom call? What do you do there? Why are you talking to people?" So I'm always available, always willing to listen. And I think the not so superpower is I love the microphone, so it's very difficult to keep me quiet on occasions like this.
I like it. Well, I was going to add into your superpower and say that I also think that your superpower to add on to a great listener is that you're a super connector. So I think that makes for super listening to be able to be a super connector too. I think you're really good at bringing people together. So that's just from my perspective, but still they're all superpowers. So that's amazing.
Thank you. Yes, my wife said to my father-in-law said to my wife that one of the things that he likes about me is that I always listen. And being able to keep quiet and listen and understanding is very difficult for the great majority of us, especially entrepreneurs, right? And then just being able to come around and say something that's going to generate value is the second most difficult thing.
I love it.
Connector. Yeah, I love connecting people. Thank you.
The whole side of it is, in my mind, it's always listen twice, speak once. That's what's going to help you move around in the world.
Right.
But Israel, I thank you very much for all your time today. It was great to get to know you a lot more again. I think the best was when I got to come down to Chihuahua and meet you and the rest of your team and participate in that event. But today I got to learn a little bit more, and hopefully the audience did too. But again, I appreciate it. As I always say, I won't do it, but I do. I take notes. Can't help it, old school, but a lot of great things in here. I love the whole side of money management. I'm going to push that more. I'm going to put that on a banner because it's so needed. But the way we like to end things is we want to give you the last word. So anything you want to share to entrepreneurs or to investors, it's over to you. But thank you again for all your time today.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And just looking at your background there and the picture that you have, and I know up north you guys get some great snow in the winter. And as you know, in Mexico, we have the opportunity of having some great beaches. And I can invite you. Of course, you're going to receive my invite to come and join us in Pitch at the Beach in Mexico, August 21st, 22nd, 23rd. And obviously to all your audience. The last two events, we have people from Canada. You guys love coming and having a good party, but more than anything, connecting with entrepreneurs from around the world, other investors from the region. Have a great time, but be humans one to another. Take your shoes off, take your socks off, put your naked feet on the sand, and just make connections.
I love it. We'll make sure we push that out and help support pitching on a beach. I love it. It's a great concept. And again, thank you for your time. I will admit the photo in the background, that's a mountain I climbed in Bolivia. So I would love to say that was Canada, but in this case, next one will be. But regardless, again, I appreciate all your time. Thank you very much, Israel. And just give me 2 secs. Okay, that was Israel. I met him a couple years ago. I went down to to Mexico to do a keynote and to chat at his conference, which was phenomenally well done, and really got to meet amazing people in Chihuahua, Mexico, and through Mexico. And I just loved. I said this earlier, but I'm a big fan of his 3 points, which was understanding money for what a CEO should look for, great communication skills, and don't hire your friends. I think there were some good points there to look at. And of course, just throughout all of this, building up that energy, learning from your mistakes, and communicating is pretty big. So, and I'm going to check out that Bull movie. So if you haven't already, please like, share, comment, give us any feedback. We're always looking to improve. Make us some introductions. We would be more than happy to jump on an interview. But thank you again for all your time today. Stay awesome.